July 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Oshkosh Common Council. The city clerk, please take the roll.
Flom.
Here.
Bulow.
Here.
We have 3 excused absence of Stevenson, Nichols, and Larson. Esslinger.
Here.
Mughawar.
Here.
We have 4 present.
This evening, Councilmember Flom will lead us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
As we gather tonight, we are grateful for the good things that have come to this city. May our decisions always be ones that are for the well-being of all whom we govern.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up this evening, we have a presentation on Central City Truck Route Study by KL Engineering. Mr. Collins.
All right, good evening. The city had received a request from the downtown business improvement district over the last year. The bid's been talking about this for a couple years, but we took an action on it this year. They had an interest in looking at the city's designated truck route. Specifically, they're interested in the truck route that goes down Main Street through the central downtown area. So we hired KL Engineering to do an evaluation of our current designated truck route network and a little bit of our connecting highway network as well. So I'm going to turn it over to, we have Mike Scarman and Brad Demoski from KL Engineering who will go through the presentation.
Good evening, and thanks for having us. I'm told the clicker is a little cranky, so we'll do our best here. But so we have a brief presentation, just kind of go over the study that Kale's been working on, and afterwards, if there's questions, happy to answer those as well. I think Jamie set the stage pretty well, so I'll dive right in. There we go. I'm gonna, these first few slides, just give kind of the high level context of why we're doing the study and what we're looking for. Kind of as Jim mentioned, this is focused on the downtown area. You can see from the map, it's really just that core area of downtown and the truck routes, other routes that travel through we're looking at. You know, certainly the truck routes continue north and south and west, but really just looking at the downtown area. A couple goals that, you know, we're really focused on as far as, you know, where to put trucks. You know, the first is downtowns are areas where we definitely, you know, the vision is to promote walkability, accessibility, and kind of that downtown character. And second is, you know, understanding that the city has visions for redeveloping certain areas that might kind of carry with land use changes or changes to where, you know, roads and where streets and how traffic flows. So really just kind of keeping those two things in mind. Jim mentioned we've been working closely with city staff from Public Works, Engineering, and Planning. From KL's side, you know, we're bringing expertise from a traffic engineering and roadway design perspective. So, you know, as part of the study, the city's vision was to, you know, look at it from an engineering perspective, but also to engage a group of stakeholders. This type of thing isn't exactly black and white, so the group you see, I won't read the names, but, you know, it included stakeholders that were identified that, you know, either had a stake in the business community downtown or were representing, you know, people that have freight movements in and out of downtown. This list is the group that participated. We did invite others. You know, you notice UW Oshkosh isn't on here. They were invited. Others were as well. They declined just kind of based out of not feeling that they had a big stake in it. So these are the folks that were gracious enough to participate. We did have 2 workshops over the last few months and got a lot of great feedback from the group. So just kind of the fundamental of you know, why we're looking at this and kind of why it matters as far as where trucks are routed. You know, on the left side, you can kind of get that vision of, you know, the downtown feel, that character of, you know, promoting a more walkable, you know, inviting environment. You know, where it's comfortable to sit and have a cup of coffee or a drink, or, you know, promote kind of civic events outside and around downtown. More on the right side is kind of everybody's vision of more of a thoroughfare. Both are needed, and it's just kind of really the balance of trying to find the appropriate places for both to take place. So, it's kind of one of those where it is really kind of a win-win opportunity. So from the perspective of the business community, the downtown community, rerouting trucks outside of downtown, there's, creates a more walkable environment. Trucks are loud, large vehicles that create a lot of noise that just kind of clashes with that opportunity to enjoy outdoor seating and outdoor events. Bigger trucks are, from a safety perspective, the interactions with cars and bikes and pedestrians allows different modes of travel downtown. And probably one of the biggest factors is, trucks take a lot of space to maneuver and make turns. So taking those trucks out of downtown gives the opportunity to reallocate some of that space for other uses, and kind of the creativity and options that gives you. On the flip side, let me go back. There we go. From the freight perspective, similar benefits of getting out of downtown. You're all familiar with more of the narrower streets, parked cars on both sides. There's a lot of angled intersections where there's just tight maneuvers, so that's difficult for trucks. And then again, the safety is kind of beneficial for them as well. There's less interactions with the amount of people on foot and bikes and the amount of traffic through downtown. So that's kind of paints a picture of kind of the overall goals and approach to the study and why it matters. I guess from here, I'm going to let Brad go into more of the nitty-gritty details and pass it over.
All right, thanks, Mike. I want to touch on just some of the methodology we use in our analysis. We used a matrix to evaluate the individual routes for either addition or removal. By using the matrix level or methodology, we're able to look at each individual segment on a standalone basis, and then evaluate each segment and piece together the best alternates, like using this option here for removal, this option here for subtraction, to really piece together the best overall recommendation. We evaluated 15 different criteria for each segment. Then we assigned a score, and then assigned a modifier based on the importance of each criteria. The different criteria include extra travel time required and distance required to maneuver around the truck routes, the stop density per mile, looking at signal stops and stop signs, intersection density per mile, additional turns and turning difficulties that trucks have to make along the route, adjacent land use, the number of lanes, the crash history, the traffic volumes, the pavement type and condition, the pedestrian crossing density per mile, alignment with future city plans and concepts, project improvement cost, and stakeholder support. You'll notice that 4 lines up there are bolded, and these were identified through the stakeholder workshop process as the most important criteria to evaluate. So these criteria had an increased weight associated to it in the modifier to help differentiate the segments between each other. The most important ones that we identified were adjacent land use due to the desire to investigate moving routes out of downtown. Crash history, safety was identified as a very important factor by businesses, freight, and the city through the workshops. Alignment with city plans and concepts. We are aware of all the future redevelopment going on in the downtown area, and we did not want to recommend a route that will be in conflict with that future redevelopment plan, just to get in the same situation down the road where we have to look at moving these routes again. And then finally, just project improvement costs with all the tight intersections in the downtown area. Changing routes may require significant improvements, including pavement expansion, pavement replacement, and right-of-way purchases from houses, businesses, and signal improvements. So we wanted to properly weight that as well. So going on to the existing truck routes in the city with a focus on the downtown area. The primary routes north and south include Ohio Street and Wisconsin Street, Oregon Street, Jackson Street, Main Street, and then Bowen Street. And the primary routes east and west include South Park Ave, 9th Ave, Otter and CP, High Ave and Algoma Boulevard, and then Irving Ave. So getting into the analysis, we looked at potentially removing 5 different segments. There are 2 segments along Main Street, with the split being at Irving Ave, a route along High Ave and Algoma Boulevard, the one-way pair between Jackson Street and Main Street. And we understand there are 2 different roadways there, but they operate in tandem, being the one-way pairs, so we consider that to be one segment. and then 2 routes along Irving Ave with Jackson Street being the split there. The red colored lines indicate the 2 routes that scored highest for removing. Main Street between Algoma Boulevard and Irving Ave was identified as the best candidate for removal according to our analysis. The combination of being downtown, having a high crash history, and broad stakeholder support for removal led to the matrix scoring this as the best candidate for removal. The next best candidate was the Algoma Boulevard and High Ave one-way pairs between Main Street and Jackson Street. This segment was identified as being the second best candidate based on the adjacency to downtown, a high pedestrian crossing density, and being in conflict with the city's long-term vision for High Ave in the downtown area. So one thing that we do want to note is that even if a route is identified as potentially being removed, if you have a business along that route, trucks can still access your property. So say you have a business along Main Street between Algoma and Irving, trucks are still able to get to your business and drop things off. It just wouldn't be that through traffic going along that route. So looking at the different routes we evaluated for adding to the truck route network, we looked at 9 different options for potential addition. Looked at 1 along South Park Ave, 2 along Pearl Ave, split at Jackson Street, 2 along 6th Ave with a split at Oregon Street. Looked at 1 along Irving Ave, 1 along Union Ave, 1 along Church Ave, and then the one-way pairs of Algoma Boulevard and High Ave just in between Wisconsin Street and Jackson Street. So the dark blue lines indicate the 2 routes that scored the highest for adding. South Park Ave between Main Street and Ohio Street was identified as the best candidate for additions based on the combination of low stop density along the route, the lower cost to improve those intersections should modifications be required, and a broad support by stakeholders. So this route was identified in our first workshop as being a preferred route that freight users in the city would like to use if able, which would help remove traffic from the downtown corridor. Irving Ave between Main Street and Bowen Street was identified as the next best candidate for adding a truck route. And this was primarily due to the result of a low density of stops along the route. The turning movements for freight were generally easier to make, and then the low current vehicle volumes. So getting into the recommendations, through our analysis, we've determined to recommend a phased approach to implementing changes to the truck routes. We are recommending a phase 1 and a phase 2. And this map shows our phase 1 recommendation. Phase 1 is a near-term implementation where the truck route along Main Street between Algoma Boulevard and Irving Ave is removed, and a truck route is added along South Park Ave between Ohio Street and Main Street. These 2 segments were determined to be the best candidates for either addition or removal through our analysis, but they were also identified by stakeholders at the workshops as being prime candidates for removal and addition as well. Both businesses, downtown, and freight users agreed that removing this segment along Main Street was a good alternative. And freight users identified South Park Ave as being a preferred alternate that would allow them to bypass the downtown area as a whole. Adding South Park will hopefully remove a percentage of trucks traveling along Main Street downtown. By separating phase 1 and 2, the city would be able to implement phase 1 and determine the impacts. Ultimately, the phase 1 removes the Main Street corridor, but also still allows a decent level of connectivity for trucks to the west of Main Street. Trucks going along Main Street are able to connect into the existing network similar to how they do today via Algoma Boulevard and High Ave. If there's a large volume of trucks going through downtown after phase 1, or if the city implements their vision for the High Ave closure and down the road, phase 2 could be implemented. And this shows phase 2. Phase 1 is shown in black, just kind of for reference, but so phase 2 can be implemented if there's still high volumes of trucks through downtown or if the city implements their long-term vision for High Ave. Phase 2 removes Algoma Boulevard and High Ave, the one-way pair between Main Street and Jackson Street, and then adds the truck route along Irving Ave between Main Street and Bowen Street. Through the analysis, these routes were identified as the second best candidates for addition and removal. And at the end of the day, if both phase 1 and phase 2 are implemented, this is what it would look like. There would be no through truck traffic, truck routes along Main Street between Otter Ave and Irving. And the last big thing I wanted to touch on was just the connecting highways. So another part of the study that was briefly touched on earlier involved looking at connecting highways through the city. For those of you that don't know, connecting highways are the routes that state highways or U.S. highways take as they go through the city. In Oshkosh, the connecting highway routes include US 45 along Main Street, Algoma and High Boulevard, the one-way pairs, up Jackson Street, and then out on Murdoch. State Highway 44 runs up South Park Ave, goes north on Ohio Street and crosses the bridge, turns into Wisconsin Street, then connects on Irving Ave. And then State Highway 21 goes east and west on Oshkosh Ave and goes north on Algoma Boulevard. So connecting highways are important because the city is ultimately responsible for the maintenance, but the state does help out with funding for these maintenance projects. And additionally, any changes to the connecting highway designation requires coordination with WISDOT. When we initially started the study, we had assumed that connecting highways also needed to be truck routes in the eyes of DOT. And that would have certainly added an element to the analysis that we needed to consider. And as such, we did investigate a few possible options moving forward, but through further coordination with WISDOT, it was determined that there is not a connection between connecting highways and truck routes, which gives the city a little extra flexibility. The only thing that would need to change is the city ordinance that currently requires the connecting highway roads to also be truck routes. In addition to the maintenance costs, WISDOT also provides a certain element of funding to improvement projects along these routes. In the next few years, we are aware that the Main Street corridor south of the river and the Main Street Bridge are slated for construction. Those are connecting highway routes, so therefore are funded in part by DOT. Due to these projects and the unknown with the funding going forward with connecting highway routes, and there not really being connection to the truck routes, we feel like we're not in a position to make a recommendation on changing the connecting highway routes at this time. Down the road, when the funding and projects get sorted out, then we could take a look at it, but with the funding being up in the air and being impacted by the connecting highways, we recommend not. And kind of last, we have a couple next steps. In August, we will be completing the report and final recommendations. And then in August, September, we can update any city ordinances as needed. And with that, we'd like to thank you for your time and open it up to any questions.
Council, any questions? I don't see any right now. Appreciate the presentation and the time you guys put into this, and then we'll see what the next steps are from city staff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have citizen statements to council. I don't have anyone registered to speak on this. I know we had somebody new join us. I hate to call you up, but are you looking to speak tonight on any? Okay, just wanted to make sure. We're a little different than normal, so I wanted to make sure.
Every day is different.
Everything is different. Next up, consent agenda. I have no one registered to speak on consent either, so I'll take a motion in a second for consent.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on consent agenda items? I see none. City Clerk, please take the roll on consent.
Flom,
Aye.
Bulow,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Mughawar,
Aye.
carried 4.
Moving on to pending ordinance. Ordinance is 24-435, approve comprehensive land use plan map amendment from community facility to light density residential for property located at 929 Winnebago Avenue. This is formerly the Washington Elementary School. Planning Commission recommends approval. Take a motion and a second.
Move it. Second.
Discussion on the update. So take the roll on ordinance 24-435.
Sorry. Flom,
Aye.
Bulow,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Mughawar,
Aye.
carried 4.
Ordinance 24-436 approves zone change from urban mixed-use district to urban mixed-use district with a planned development overlay for property located at south of 686 North Main Street. This is formerly 668 North Main Street. Planning Commission recommends approval. I have no one registered on this one. Take a motion in a second.
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? Should take the roll on 24-436.
Flom,
Aye.
Bulow,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Mughawar,
Aye.
carried 4.
New ordinances. First one up, ordinance 24-437 approves zone change from single-family residential 9 district to institutional district with a planned development overlay for property at 600 Merritt Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval, and the applicant requests waiving the rules and adopting on the first reading. I don't have anyone registered to speak on this. Council, is there a motion to waive the rules and adopt on first reading?
I would move to waive the rules.
Second.
Any discussion on waiving the rules? take the roll on waiving the rules for 24-437.
Flum,
Aye.
Bulow,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried four.
Back to the original ordinance 24-437. I'll take a motion and a second to put on the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? See, we're moving right along. If you'll take the roll on 24-437.
Flum,
Aye.
Bulow,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried four.
Ordinance, next three are ordinances, are new ordinances, first reading tonight, no anticipated action. Ordinance 24-438 approves zone change from central mixed-use district with riverfront overlay to central mixed-use district with riverfront and planned development overlay at 400 City Center. Planning Commission recommends approval. I do have one individual registered to speak, Mr. Kurt Kepler. If you'd like to speak, if you can come over to that one for us, if you don't mind.
Do what?
If you can go to that one over there for us.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Kepler. I live at 1726 Riverville Road. I'm one of the managing partners and owners of City Center Associates. And I'm one of the applicants and just want to know if you guys have any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions on this one from, do we need to put it on the floor first? No action tonight, but we can ask questions if they're here.
You want to just give a 30,000 foot view of the project and what you're foreseeing going in there?
Well, what we're requesting is to rezone to allow a company called Extra Space Storage to occupy the former U.S. Bank building, which is approximately 75,000 square feet, which now sits vacant. It's been on the market for 2 years. We have not had any interest in the property at all. The market for that type of space is almost non-existent due to COVID and people working at home. That was the reason U.S. Bank left. This would be a great addition to our property. If you look at the various elevations, you'll see that we're going to make some dramatic changes to the exterior of the building. You will hardly know that Extra Space Storage is there. There'll be small signage. There'll be some closed areas that used to be open loading docks. We'll have closed doors. There'll be doors for people to bring in their stuff. They'll open with a remote. They'll pull in, they'll unload, they'll pull back out. We anticipate about 35 cars a day will be in and out. There'll be no storage outside. The normal parking deck load for U.S. Bank was 200 cars. For Extra Space Storage, it'll be 4 cars. This will be a great addition for us because of parking becomes an issue when we're close to full capacity. So this will be a great help. It'll completely change the exterior of that side of our building. If you look at the photos and the drawings, we'll be doing some extensive cladding and painting and closing in doors. Also, you will not see any storage cubicles from the exterior. The windows will be blocked out with a film that matches the existing coating, so we'll allow some natural light to come in the top panes, but we will not allow anybody to see any cubicles from the outside. So that's about 30,000 feet, I hope.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I have concerns, and I'll voice them now. At least gives you time to try to, it gives you time to answer them. You don't have to try to answer tonight, but gives you time before the second reading next meeting. I'm not sure. I think that I don't believe that this fits within that space down there. I'm not sure I find how it fits down there. Storage space fits within that space. The original intent of that building, the redevelopment of that building 20 plus years ago, there's still a TIF on that property, City Manager, right? Is there
Yeah,
still
in City Center.
a couple years left at least?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but
Yeah, the expenditure period is over, but there is an existing TID.
when does it expire? Do you know roughly?
5 years,
Within 5 years?
less than 5 years.
Thank you. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I should have asked in advance. So I have a hard time with a TIF being on a storage center in that space for me. So those are some concerns I have. You don't have to answer them tonight. I don't want to put you on the spot, but something to consider between now and next meeting
Okay.
on how to answer that, or how to just to talk about that, or what the value of that is in that space. Because right now, I understand it's a vacant space. I'm familiar with the space too.
I know you are.
And office space in general in this nation, right? There's a glut of it,
Absolutely.
of all classes. And we've got to get creative on how to use up some of that space. I'm not sold that this is the best use of that, especially while it's still under a TIF, so. Just some concerns I have.
Well, I'll try just to answer it so you got some time to think about it too. I would love to say that I have a tenant that would have a use for the space that would include offices but I don't, and I don't anticipate having it. The building is almost impossible to cut up into small spaces to make it more amenable to a new tenant or tenants. It's just the way it's constructed. I've done some extensive research on Extra Space Storage. They're the largest storage facility in the country. They have over 3,500 locations. I've used their facility for storage. They're well lit, they're safe, they're efficient. I wouldn't have a problem sending my kids in there. And Matt, you're right, it is difficult. But it's almost impossible to find a tenant for a space like that. And for us to keep the property in the condition we keep it now, we need tenants. I'll be perfectly honest with you, we need tenants. Sure, I'd like to be picky, but in this market, that's impossible. I think Extra Space Storage will be a great addition. I hope you take the time to look at the photos of the exterior of the building, and you'll see that Extra Space is kind of a non-event, other than their signage. But there'll be some great improvements to the exterior of the building, which will also allow us to carry that theme forward to update other areas of the building. So I guess my partners and I are at a position that we need to do this. We need to do this to maintain the property. We can't go with 75,000 square feet being vacant. It just doesn't work for us. I'd love to say I have a big, industrial or a big commercial tenant going in there, but I don't anticipate it. We've had no interest in the property in 2 years, and I don't anticipate any interest in the near future. So this is an option for us to update the property, to change the look of the building, and to have a national-wide tenant that is well-known and the largest in the country at what they do. They have controlled operating hours. They don't allow people in late at night. If you are a storage customer, you have a key fob to enter. So you pull in, close the door, unload your stuff, pull back out, 35 cars a day max. It's fully staffed. I think they run a great operation. I've done tons of research on them, and I wouldn't be here if I didn't think so. But the biggest thing I think is important to this project is take a look at the exterior. I don't think what happens on the interior is of much concern to anybody, but if you look at what we're doing to the exterior of that building and how we're changing things, it's really dramatic. And it's gonna cost a lot of money, but it needs to be done. This property was conducted in 1970. There's been no changes on the exterior of this portion of the building since that date, so it's time and it's much needed. So please just take a look at the exterior. I think that's the biggest thing to be concerned here, is how it's gonna look. Not what's in it, but how it's gonna look. So, any other questions?
Councilman Wrestling, and I think City Manager wants to share something
Mr.
after that.
Kepler, I agree with you. I think the inside, I don't think anyone really cares what it looks like inside. And so I do agree with you 100%, the exterior. I'm just looking at the materials that I've been supplied with here. Are there any architectural renderings of the outside and what you plan on doing with it?
Yes, there
Yeah.
are. That was the point I was going to bring. Because this is a rezoning, the photographs that Mr. Kepler is referring to have to do with the SIP, the specific implementation plan, and the general development plan, which you'll get at the next meeting. So the first discussion of zoning is tonight. The second one is at our next meeting, and the SIP and the GDP will be on that agenda. But since Mr. Kepler let that cat out of the bag, I mean, that was with the Plan Commission already. We'll get you those photos this week, so you got them in advance.
Thank you.
So yeah, the answer to your question, Mr. Esslinger, is yes, they do have them. We don't include those typically in the rezone part, but we do in the SIP. But now we owe it to you since it's out there.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Appreciate you coming in and having a conversation with us about this tonight.
Well, thanks, and thanks for what you guys do. I know it takes a lot of time. Thanks.
Again, no action tonight on that. We'll move on to the next two new ordinances. Again, no action on these is anticipated either. Ordinance 24-439, approve request to attach the city from town of Nakamai, Zellner Voluntary Attachment 3669 Oregon Street. And then ordinance 24-440, amends section 13-7 of the City of Oshkosh Municipal Code pertaining to open outdoor fires, outdoor fireplaces, cooking fires, and barbecue grills, kettles, and outdoor hibachis to remove permitting requirements. We'll move on to new resolutions. Resolution 24-441, approve dissolving tax increment district number 12, Division Street redevelopment. I don't have anyone registered to speak.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Should take the roll on 441.
Flom,
Aye.
Bulow,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Mughawar,
Aye.
carried 4.
Approve, resolution 24-442, approve dissolving tax increment district number 28, Oshkosh Beach Building redevelopment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this one? Would you like to roll on 24-442?
Flom,
Aye.
Bulow,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Mughawar,
Aye.
carried 4.
Resolution 24-443, approve specific implementation plan amendment for exterior building modifications at 640 North Main Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. I don't have anyone registered to speak on this.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I see none. If you take the roll on 24-443.
Flom,
Aye.
Bulow,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Mughawar,
Aye.
carried 4.
Last resolution for the evening, resolution 24-444, approve general development plan and specific implementation plan for a multifamily residential use at 600 Merritt Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval. No one registered on this one.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the resolution? I see none. Please take the roll.
Flom,
Aye.
Bulow,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Mughawar,
Aye.
carried 4.
That concludes the action items for this evening. We'll move on to council discussion, direction to city manager, and future agenda items. Future agenda item, we have city manager's mid-year review. That'll be next Tuesday, July 30th. That's a closed session following the budget workshop. Deputy Mayor Bulow will lead us through that exercise that evening. Anything you want to share? I didn't ask you ahead of time, but.
Not yet.
Okay. And then as a reminder, and I know it's under future meetings, but next Tuesday, July 30th, 5 to 7, and we'll be in City Hall for the budget workshop. And then next council meeting, fireworks regulation and enforcement. That'll be an agenda item for discussion that
For
evening.
discussion only, yes.
Thank you. Okay.
And just noting that's going to be on Wednesday.
Good to know. Because of an election on Tuesday the 13th, we automatically move the council meetings to that subsequent Wednesday. So thank you. Good catch on that one. And we should be back at City Hall by then. The elevator is fixed, is what I heard, correct?
Well, the elevator is working today.
The elevator is working today, at least. We'll let you know the Friday before. Future meetings and workshops. Again, Budget Workshop 1. This is the CIP discussion. That's Tuesday, July 30th, 5 to 7, room 404, City Hall. Budget Workshop number 2. This is for 2025 early projections and directions on priorities from council. That'll be on Wednesday, August 28th at 5 p.m. I anticipate that one would be at City Hall as well. Common Council regular meeting moved to Wednesday, August 14th, 6 PM. That evening, not only will we have a closed session for the city manager's media review, but we will, oh, excuse me, that's next meeting. I apologize. Sorry, that evening we'll have a closed session for Boatworks development. Question on if we want to have it before or after.
Yeah, we can get it done in an hour. It's really good. I only have 4 of you here, but if you think you can get there early enough that we could do it in an hour, we could do it. Otherwise, we'll do it afterwards. And
I'm cool with that before.
Well, you've got direction at least from for the before. My only concern, and we've had this discussion before, there needs to be enough time for council to have discussion and to give direction. So if we run up against 5:40 and council hasn't started speaking yet, then we need, so
Okay.
making sure that the front end of it is concise enough, or make sure we put it after, would be my suggestion.
Okay, very good. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
And then to be determined yet, undergrounding utilities. All right. Any council member announcements or statements? I see none. City manager, the rest is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple items of memos, one about a cooperative purchase for some RRFBs, the rectangular rapidly flashing beacons, the ones you see over on Witzel. We're going to put that over at Graceland and 9th. Again, that's a very wide street that gets a lot of pedestrian traffic. We think it's warranted, and I believe that was discussed also at the Transportation Committee. So a lot of support for that. So and we do have it, it's budgeted, so we have that in there. And then a couple professional services agreements, both having to do with some workforce housing, one for the Washington School project, and then also for the Farmington project. And then as we get ready for the 2025 and 2026 CIP, we do some environmental review in advance of getting projects done, and we've got that agreement with Robert E. Lee for next year as well. And then I've got the update of outstanding issues, and happy to answer any questions about the memos or the outstanding issues.
If there's nothing from council, we can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.